Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special guest, Ketan Patel. Ketan, thanks so much for being here.
Sujata, thank you so much for the opportunity. Very excited to be on your show.
Awesome. So everyone, Ketan is a high performance real estate coach that helps motivated real estate entrepreneurs create more income and impact by aligning their mindset, strategy, and execution. He has mastered the art of getting results by combining techniques from Tony Robbins, Wim Hof, Dr. Joe Dispenza. His achievements include earning an accelerated Doctor of Pharmacy degree while learning English, building a multi-million dollar rental portfolio starting from $8,000, raising over $10 million for just his multifamily syndication business, and growing a senior care business by 3x in just 2 years. Well, that's quite an amazing accomplishments that you've had so far, Ketan. Thanks so much for providing that information. Will you go ahead and take us back in time, give us a little color as to what drew you into the real estate world?
Yeah, so, originally I'm an immigrant from India. I came here, I got my doctor of pharmacy, I'm practicing pharmacy, and I just realized that I just don't want to rely on one income source. I want to explore more opportunities. So real estate really caught my eye because there are so many ways to get involved. So I got involved by buying small rental properties, creating passive income, and then one thing led to another, and before you know, I'm syndicating apartment complexes and raising capital and all that.
Awesome. And I know you've done quite a number of things since then. Can you give us an idea of the timeline? Like how much time has it taken for you to when you started buying single families to making the senior care business and doing syndications, et cetera?
Yeah, so, I would say I started buying single family homes around 2013. I quickly realized that this is going to take me a long time if my goal is to quit the job, and I need to find a better strategy. So in 2014, I bought that senior care business, turned it around, and meanwhile, I was doing a little bit real estate on the sidelines, but most of my effort was on the business. I quit the job and I jumped into it, right away into the business, turn it around, put it on autopilot. Now I have to work less than 1 day a week. That gave me extra time to kind of grow the real estate. And I realized I don't want to keep buying these smaller assets. I want to develop capital pool, go into bigger syndications. And I also had more time to do personal development and mindset work on myself, which gave the opportunity eventually to become a high performance coach.
Awesome. So take us back to that pivot from when were doing smaller rental family houses and then decided to buy the senior care business. What kind of senior care business was it? And if you hadn't really done the mindset work yet, I mean, maybe you had done some. What was it that made it possible for you to, take this risk?
Yeah, so it was a very, very challenging moment because at that time I hadn't done that much mindset work. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans. I had already lost most of my savings in another business venture prior to this, and I had no money to buy this business. So I had to figure out creative, and I didn't knew much about this business. And at that time, I thought this is the perfect time because I just realized that we don't get those moments where everything's aligned, the family or financial life or time. Like we wait for those moments, but they never come. And I knew I have to choose possibility because limitations are always available for me to choose. Hey, this is not going to work. Or what if this doesn't work? Or I don't have knowledge about this, or whatever that story is. And it's always challenging to choose possibility, but you are starting to train yourself. So it was challenging, but I had to make that choice. I'm glad I made it because that really changed the trajectory of everything I was doing in my life.
Awesome. Yeah, that's quite a feat to like a mental feat to have decided to take that risk. And was it just so I'm just curious, was it an assisted living business? What kind of senior care business was it?
So this is more like along the home care senior lines where I don't have a facility, but the caregivers go directly to seniors' home and help them and all.
Okay. So you were able to build this business and was it what size properties were you operating?
For the real estate.
For the senior care business, were you operating them or were you providing services?
Yeah, so I was providing services. So this way, I never own properties. I just have my infrastructure of caregivers directly going to the facilities or clients' home wherever they're located.
Okay, got it. And so you got this business to be operating pretty much on its own. You're only working a day a week, I think. And so was that replacing your pharmacist income?
Yes, that was replacing my income.
Okay. So, I mean, as you and I both know, if you're a growth minded person, it's hard to just sit back and, you know, just chill, basically, even though you've now replaced your income. So, what was it that motivated you to take the next step in real estate?
Yeah, so I've always been a person that's a big believer in following your curiosity, right? And we really don't know where this curiosity is going to lead us. But and it always feels uncomfortable sometimes because it might not make the perfect sense. But I was like, let me just be curious, and curiosity has helped me. And now I have extra time. And I realized that the 3 unit, 5 unit buildings, they are difficult to scale. The time and energy that goes into buying them, you make great cash flow, you make good return on disposition, but it's not something where I could bring a lot of friends and family into the business. And I people started reaching out to me, and I was trying to answer the question, how do I scale things, get more ROI on my efforts? And then multifamily syndication is what I was curious about, and I started looking into that direction.
Okay, awesome. And that's a great segue into multifamily. What was it about multifamily that you ended up finding attractive as you started to explore the space?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? It's apartments is something that we could relate to at one point or another point in our lives, right? And especially already working on 3 unit, 5 unit buildings, I had a working idea, and I knew that this asset class is somewhat stable. People need a place to live. And if you have a good location, good occupancy, and if you're operating it well, it's not going to swing from one direction to other, like a retail strip mall or a data center or other asset classes and things like that. So I like that stability piece of that. And, relatively, if you have good tenants, good property management protocols in place, then it's not that challenging to operate the assets and things like that. And that made me drawn to that asset class.
Okay, awesome. So, how did you proceed? Did you proceed to look for multifamily apartments to purchase and operate yourself, or did you bring on a property manager? Can you just give us a little bit of color into how you proceeded?
Yeah, so I realized while I was doing all that, that the capital is the king to everything in real estate. Whether I want to buy my own deals, partner with someone, maybe change the asset class in the future. So I realized, why don't I leverage other people's deal, partner with them, find people who are good at finding good deals, at executing well, and then I could invest my money and my investors' money into those partnerships. And then as I do that, I'm building trust with my investors. I'm kind of getting lay of the land. And then I could go and switch and buy my own apartments if I need to. But as through trial and error, I just realized I enjoy that piece more. That's where my skill set and passions lie versus operating an apartment complex myself.
For sure. That's so awesome. And um, what would you characterize the differences between those two skill sets, like the capital raising and operations?
Yeah, so the other skill set, you are focusing a lot on being on the ground, talking to brokers and agents and sellers to actually find these deals. You're running numbers and building the models to see if the deals make sense. And then after you acquire the asset, you're focusing on building the relationship with the asset management team, the property management team, making sure it's hitting the matrix, all that kind of stuff. Versus the capital raising, you're focused more on investor education, investor relationships. You are still doing research and numbers to make sure that the market makes sense, the deal makes sense, the NOI jumps and the spread and cap rates and all that. But that's done more behind the scenes, so to speak, versus being upfront and vetting through 20, 30, 40, 50 deals to get that deal. as a capital raiser, you're vetting the sponsors, checking their systems and processes in the deals to find a good opportunity for your investors.
Awesome. And, I know you obviously have transitioned into the mindset work. Let's transition into talking about, first of all, what drew you into that space?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the way we think, feel, and act determines everything. That creates the lens. Whether we are a passive investor or we are an active business person, it doesn't matter what our goals are, what we are doing. If we are not aware of how we are thinking, feeling, and acting, I feel like it's just driving a car with having no idea on how any of the buttons work, basically, right? So I had that realization, and I was very curious about these things, so I started learning about all of these things one by one.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'd love to hear about how that journey unfolded. I mean, we know that mindset is important. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, it played out. It played out that we all have these limiting beliefs. I realized, I was somewhat obsessed to see why are these 2, 3, 4% folks getting results, and why is majority of folks, including me at that time, why I'm having so much trouble with getting things done. I know what the right steps are for me, and why am I not executing it? And I started unraveling that question, and I realized that we are operating in that 5% conscious mind. There are so many patterns and emotional patterns, thought patterns, beliefs that we have that don't serve us. They are just limiting our potential. They are just limiting what we are capable of truly doing. And I truly believe that all of us could be doing so many things on our own flavor, according to our interests and things like that, right? And as I started that journey, I started to come close with my limiting beliefs and how I'm playing it small and keeping myself into these stories and things like that, versus looking outside of it. It's just a big world out there with so much potential to untap. So
For sure. And I'm curious, what kinds of things do you, when you work, there's a high performance coach, when you're working with clients, what kinds of um, suggestions do you make to your students when you're trying to help them reprogram I'm sure we could talk for a long time about this, but but I'm just curious, like if you have some techniques you could share with the listeners.
yeah, sure. I could share, on a high level, there are these 5 fundamental things when it comes to getting results in any field, any domain, right? Number one is clarity. We need to have clarity about what our outcomes are, what our goals are, right? Once what we desire and why, what the purpose behind is. Once we have that, then we move on to the strategy, right? How are we going to get there? What is that road? Is it real estate? Is it some other business? Is it multifamily? Now we have the strategy cleared. Now we move on to execution piece, right? Do we have plans so we could take consistent action even if we are not getting results? Are we tweaking our actions? Are we managing our time well, productivity and all that stuff? Now the fourth pillar would be we are getting some results. How do we leverage our skills, whether it's hiring folks, putting automation systems, investing into the business ourselves, all that. And then the number five, it's last but not least, is as you do all these things, you're going to uncover limiting beliefs, you're going to uncover fears. So how to reframe those things into things that are supporting you instead of taking you back. So these 5 things are the key, and everybody has a different blueprint. So I help clients figure out that, okay, I'm good at taking action, I'm good at strategizing, but I just don't have the clarity. Or somebody has the clarity and strategy, but they are not good at executing. So if you this gives you a framework to kind of see what's missing, what's kind of holding you back to go to that next level.
Awesome. I love that so much. And maybe we could just do a little bit of, I know everyone's blueprint is different, but what if we just did a little bit of a deeper dive into clarity and how folks can achieve that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite topic, right? So, because a lot of times what happens is we want to change the direction, right? And clarity is we are waiting for that absolute clarity. that, okay, if I have this clarity, now I'm going to go after, which is not the right approach. First, you just, number one thing is clarity is direction first, right? Destination later. So if you just even know that I want to go in that direction, that's good enough. Then you want to take some action, because when you take action, you always get some feedback. Either you get a positive feedback, which means the things worked, or you get a neutral feedback or negative, it didn't work. But now you take that feedback, this would improve your clarity. So now you could take more action. I call it the clarity triangle. So now what happens is, doing this, you're going to feel progress, you're going to feel movement, and your chances of finding what you're meant to do is much higher, versus sitting and just, thinking and thinking and hoping that it strikes you. So now you could work on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like, kind of, it's hard to really actually continue to hone in on what it is you want if you're just stuck in place and not actually moving towards that thing. It's more of this finding your way type thing, and paying attention and being in tune with it, and paying attention to that feedback and taking action. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people say that things about how action is like the antidote to anxiety, and things of that nature. And I think that's along these same lines, like in order to continue, but it's, I think, paying attention to that clarity, as you're taking action and checking in with yourself, and really being mindful in the process, is also seems to be important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now let's talk about, let's see. I think I would like to talk about limiting beliefs next. That's number 5, but such an important, such an important one. So yeah, I feel that too. Like anytime I'm doing something new, including this podcast, like I'm, feeling it's, especially when you're doing something new and before you've kind of found your groove. For me, it's it comes up daily. Like, is this going to go well? Am I doing it right? Are people going to like it, etc.? And so it's definitely something that anytime I take on something new, it can come up.
Yeah, absolutely. So this comes from the Tony Robbins playbook, right? If you look at a square, let's just say at the top left, you have belief, you have action on the right side. If you go to the bottom, it's a result. I know it's somewhat difficult to visualize. On at the bottom left side, you have potential. So what happens is, we all have the potential to create the life we want to create, to make the income we want to make, to create the impact. But what happens is, we might not believe that. And when you don't believe that, you are not going to tap into that potential. You're going to take less action. And what is that going to do? Not generate that much result. So that's going to reaffirm that belief. Like, see, I told you you weren't good at whatever you are doing. But conversely, if you have a strong conviction that I'm going to do this podcast, or I'm going to raise money, or I'm going to buy a property, you just really, really program that new belief, you are going to take more action. And the chances are, it doesn't always mean by taking more action you're going to get more results, but your chances are higher, or you might learn what's not working. So you could change that, right? Either way, your chances are higher. And that's going to reaffirm that belief that, okay, you could do this. And now, next time, you're going to try even harder, take even more action. And that loop will continue to build on itself, right? It could go in a positive direction, or it could go in a negative direction. So we have to be careful and assess ourselves where we are right now. And that belief is just like a software, like an operating system that we are not aware of. And we need to go under the software and pick out those beliefs. What is it? Maybe, hey, I'm young, and I don't know if I could do this because I'm too young for this thing, or I'm too old for this, and I've spent 40 years in software, and now I don't know I could do real estate, or I didn't grow up in a good environment, didn't went to good school, I'm not that smart enough. It could be anything depending on the person. So
Yeah, well, I hope you all paid close attention to that, because it's such an important concept. And I think, like, if you understanding the nature of progress and progress as humans, if you can start to become more aware of these things that can kind of get in the way, and how to sort of cope with them, When you notice yourself bumping up against something, then being able to lean back on these tools, like, Ketan is giving us a brief overview of it right now, is just so important anytime you want to try to do something new and level up in life. So thanks so much for that. And before we, wrap up, I want to at least touch on execution for folks who are having trouble. They kind of know what they need to be doing, but they're just not, taking action or executing. um, what would you advise on that front?
Yeah, so for people who know that, hey, I need to be doing this, this is going to get to me my goals, it's very clear. And if they are not doing it at a deeper level, it's a belief issue. It's like on a surface level, you understand if I take XYZ action, I'm going to get where I need to, but I don't believe it's going to happen for whatever reason. And if that's what you believe and feel, you're not going to take the action. So I would encourage them to kind of uncover, why are you not taking action? Is it maybe fear of failure? Is it maybe in the past you tried so many things, it didn't work, so now you're just disappointed and you just are fearful of disappointing yourself again, right? It could be any of, so figuring out the root cause is important, so that way you could solve it and start taking action, because without that, we know there's only so much that will happen, right? So
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ketan. I know we could talk for hours and hours about everything that, all of this mindset, et cetera. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Please, I'd love to take a moment to shine the spotlight on you and tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and anything else you'd love to share.
yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. And for listeners, they could go to my website, ketanpatel.com. That's Ketan and Patel, Patel. I have a 5 pillars of high performance guide waiting for them. I have a lot of videos to help around the mindset. And for folks that really want to take their game, life, and business to the next level, they could click the button, take action, fill a discovery form, and I'll be happy to do a complimentary discovery session with them.
Awesome. Well, I hope you all check out Ketan's stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.